From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. In this episode, we ask, what are fleets doing to bring in more inclusion within their ranks? What are the issues concerning a person of color in leadership? And how does a diverse workforce help the trucking industry? We'll set out to answer those questions in this episode. We'll speak with Alfonso Lewis Sr., professional truck driver with YRC Freight, who is also a member and captain of the American Trucking Association's America's Road Team. But first, let's speak with Shelley Dellinger from Cargo Transporters. Welcome to the show, Shelley.
Thank you, Michael.
We covered diversity when it comes to women in the industry. On our previous program, we had talked about women being involved, but I really want to discuss people of color and the LGBTQ community as well. First, I want to talk about your work with the Human Rights Campaign and the certification that your company received. Can you offer any more information on that?
Certainly. Our chairman, John Pope, saw that one of our local customers was ranked on the Corporate Equality Index. He made some inquiries and wanted to also get our cargo transporters involved in that. And through tweaking some of our policies and making some changes, we were able to do so. It is a process, and you're scored on workforce protections. That's 30 points, and inclusive benefits. Right now, we offer spouses and domestic partners of the same or different sex health care coverage. So, that's a great thing to have and to be able to offer to our employees, and also support an inclusive culture and corporate social responsibility. That is another one of their criteria, or how they are based some of their point system on. And that's things like having a gender transition guideline and having supportive restrooms, those type things. Having your senior management and your executive measure to include the LGBTQ diversity metrics, some of those things. Having a diversity council or employee group. It's and about being corporately or corporate socially responsible to the community.
Since you were saying that John Pope was interested in this process and designation, I assume that this was something in the company that was very organic and something that the company to a person truly believed in. Human rights as an issue itself. Is that something that was encouraged and believed in corporately as a company before getting into the process?
Oh yeah, definitely. We are about diversity. I think trucking and the industry, you may not think that, but we've had to be diverse in our hiring practices to get the job done. So I think we're we may seem like we're not the cutting edge on employment practices, but I really do think that we are as an industry.
How has the feedback and the significance of it resonated, through the company and even outside the doors of the company since you received this certification?
It's been mixed. I'll have to say it's been mixed. But we were at a Charlotte Gay Pride event last year, and large numbers of people turned out for that. And there were numerous attendees at the event that came up to our booth and were so happy to see a trucking company at the event. They had no idea that they would see us. We're between banks and phone companies and a lot of very large companies, and we were there. And I think it made them feel good about what they were doing and that they saw something familiar to them. So it's a good thing.
The thing about diversity, it just brings out strength when you have a culture of inclusion, and to include, the LGBTQ community in that process as well. That takes a lot of bravery corporately, in a sense, because quite frankly, you don't need to do it. I mean, no one was forcing you to do something like this. This was a decision that came from the top. So that does include some sort of bravery in that. That's why I asked the question. And when you said things were mixed, I know there were people that felt strongly for that and were proud to have a company share their views on the advancements and the struggles of the community, versus the dark side of things where people are stuck in their views and they have their own beliefs as well. So I mean, can you kind of speak upon that when you said it was mixed? Just kind of the reaction from that, and just sort of how cargo transporters as a company withstands that to move forward in including that particular community.
I think I can elaborate on that through the organizations and the programs that we contribute and support. We do support the HR campaign gala. We are there at that event. We also support Alpha, which is an AIDS leadership foothills area alliance. That's the team that their mission is to improve the lives and the health of people affected by HIV and AIDS. And one especially, a group that we support is Outright Youth of Catawba Valley. It's a young organization. It's 10 years young, but this group strives to provide the LGBTQ youth, young adults, services and programs to help them become healthy and happy, productive, successful adults. We all know, we've heard the suicide and the suicide attempt rates for the LGBTQ youth are higher than their counterparts. And this organization strives to put that community in a safe space, provide them with tools, provide them with mentorship. They bring in community leaders that help them through maybe the process of coming out. But that group, the Outright Youth of Catawba County or Catawba Valley, is very, very interested in maintaining a level of respect for that group. They educate others of the worth and the value and the benefits of having a diverse population. And we all have to recognize that we do get better with diversity. And so those are the things that we support, that help our community, that help our young and our youth in the community. And hopefully they may see trucking or the transportation industry as a viable career.
We've been speaking with Shelley Dellinger, who handles marketing for cargo transporters. Thank you for being on the show, Shelley.
Thanks for having me.
Join Transport Topics in celebrating trucking's frontline heroes. Meet Peter LaCoste, driver for NFI Industries.
It kind of feels good. When you do something of service, the job gets done, sure, but it also gives you a little bit of personal satisfaction, being part of the solution. I was always taught you get more if you give. There's more satisfaction in giving.
Watch Peter's full introduction video and meet other heroes at ttnews.com.
Next on the program, we have Alfonso Lewis Sr., professional truck driver at YRC Freight. Lewis is also a member and captain of the American Trucking Association's America's Road Team. Welcome to the show, Alfonso.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you today.
Glad to have you on. One of the things I wanted to talk about definitely with you is diversity in the trucking industry, specifically, with African Americans. And I had a list of questions that I will ask later, but we are also fresh off of the MCE 2020 virtual event that you were a part of. You were a part of the diversity panel. And one of the stories that really struck me was, you're a very decorated truck driver. You've won many awards and you're highly recognized, but before then getting into the industry, you had discussed in the panel that it was tough Could you kind of describe that moment, just sort of, how tough it was to get into the industry and to be in the position that you are in right now?
Well, it started out, I started out in the military, United States Army, and I served 6 years, not only as a mechanic, but the majority of my time there was, as a driver. I worked with commercial vehicles, along with also the tactical vehicles. So when I decided to get out, one thing I wanted to do was to be a professional driver. That was something my dad done, so I was going to follow in his footsteps. The thing that I ran into when I first started applying is, on my resume, the first thing I would say when I would enter a business to apply was that, I was fresh out of the military. I was a young driver, and I had 4 to 6 years experience driving, different vehicles, especially commercial vehicles. So I was very familiar with them. And I would come to some employers when I first started, and I'm feeling I was well qualified as a driver because diversity in the military was, it was. I think they may have been already ahead of civilian life, what we would call it when we were in there, because diversity in the military, you didn't have a problem. It was your ability. It's what they were looking for. So I felt that when I would apply, it's almost what people would tell me, almost like the vehicles I was going to be driving in the commercial world wasn't what I was used to in the military. They actually told me at one point that the vehicles I was going to drive commercially were bigger than the ones I was driving in the military. And maybe that they were unfamiliar with it, or maybe that was a way out. I wasn't sure. But I would make the comments that the vehicles I was driving in the military were bigger than the ones I was, applying to drive. And I tried that on several occasions. Probably at least my first 4 opportunities to be a driver. And they were hiring, the different companies. And I didn't know if my race played a part in it or what, or my age. I wasn't sure. But it just felt like I know I saw younger drivers, who were out and drive. At the time I was 23, 24 years old, coming into being a driver. And I felt I had the discipline to be a driver, and I thought the military part of it, really would cement that I was disciplined enough to be a professional driver. But then eventually I got around to one of the YRC companies. At the time it was Roadway Express, and I actually went over and applied there. And I did my same sales pitch. I threw the military out there first, and for some reason it opened the eyes of the manager who was there, and he gave me the opportunity. He asked me to come back in and fill out the application, and he asked me could I actually start the next week. And I went from there. And I mean, it was very, and made me feel included. The way they approached me, and they enjoyed my military, that I had a military background.
And Alfonso, during that story, I remember you were saying that once you were in, you had discussions with other African American drivers who kind of had the similar situation. What was it like hearing that? I mean, was it sort of a validation of the struggles that you were going through, or was it something other surprisingly?
Yeah, YRC, it was Roadway at the time, separate company, but it's part of YRC family. But at that time, when I first got on, and you know how you guys always try to give you a little input, to keep your nose clean, and make sure you do everything well, and at the best of your ability. And they were just allowing me to know that it was hard getting an African American in there because it's one of the big 3 companies at that time, and the pay was great, and I mean it was a great company to work for, and they always stressed to me how hard it was to get in there, and I just felt proud that at least I had the ability, and they had the the insight to see me or see what was in me to allow me to be there, and I realized then when I first got there, at least my first year, one thing I did notice it was only maybe 3 African American drivers that were there, and me being one of them. I was the 4th one. I'm sorry, I was the 4th one, but that was out of about 15 drivers. So first getting in there and then hearing those guys tell me to be careful and be aware. It was a little intimidating, but I knew I guess I had confidence in myself to go out and do what I needed to do to make sure, everything went well.
About that confidence, when you continue to go up the ranks in the company, and you obtained a leadership role. In I believe 2007. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were a member of America's Road Team, correct?
2007 is actually when I won the National Truck Drivers Championship, Grand Champion.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly fine. That year to me, I can almost relive it like it was yesterday. So that year is when I was considered the top driver in the nation. And I was also the first African-American to ever win that championship.
The process of that, just kind of getting to that moment, when you had that particular position, were there any thoughts of, I guess the question that I'm asking is, did that moment give you, I'll say, a validation again of the hard work that you had put into your profession? This is something that you've wanted to do for a very long time and make a career out of.
Well, I've been driving then. I think it had been like 10 to 15 years. And I actually had started competing in that particular competition on the state level. You had to win the state level to actually get to the national level. And I had been competing because my manager asked me after I think 10, 12, 15 years, he asked me, did I want to compete? And he noticed that, I was always trying to do the right thing. I was always trying to make sure things were in order and trying to be the best driver I could be. And I learned that from guys who were ahead of me. It was African-American drivers who really kind of pushed me to do things better. I can say it like that. They pushed me to do things better, at that time. So I competed at the state level. And in that competition, the first year, I can remember the first year I went. And the first year I went there, that was another eye-opening thing for me. I saw very few African-Americans participating. And in the entire group of, I think it was 18 of us, that was all from Roadway Express at that time. Out of the entire group, about 18 drivers, there may have been 2 of us. It was me and another guy. And then I would keep going back. That first year, I think I was Rookie of the Year or something in my class. But I would keep going back, and I kept going back, and I was seeing the same thing. And then finally in 2005 is when I finally won first place. You got to win first place to go to the Nationals. I won first place. I made it to the Nationals. And I got to the Nationals, and that's all the first place winners from all over the U.S. I got there, and I remember seeing the same thing. I said, I know there's a lot of African-American drivers out here, but I see very few who are at this national level competing. And at the end of every competition, there's a ceremony of the winner. And you can look at the stage, because we're all in the audience, and you look at the stage, you look at the third place row of drivers. They were all Caucasian. You look at the second, same thing. You look at the third, who were first place, same thing. Second year, I win again. I go back to the Nationals again, and I see the same thing. And I said, I know there, African-American drivers that are good out here. So myself and another driver were standing there, and he really was the one that brought it to light to me. This guy was from Florida. He didn't know me from the man on the moon. But he just came up and just started talking to me. And he was a fellow African-American driver. And he told me, he said, you know what? He says, since I've been competing, he had to compete a little bit longer than me on the national level. He said, I've never seen an African-American up there on that stage. And he and I were just talking. I said, man, I tell you what. I said, I'm gonna try my best next year. I said, I'm really gonna try my best. I want to make it to the stage, and that was my goal, to make it to the stage. And lo and behold, 2007, I not only make it to the stage, first place in my category, but then I turned out at the end of the night, I was also the grand champion of the competition. So it came full circle for me to actually not see anybody up there, to seeing myself standing there, on top of the entire class.
In times like these, it's crucial to stay informed. Transport Topics is offering all the information you need to make business decisions in these unprecedented times. And in the wake of the many event cancellations and group gatherings, TT ensures a virtual way to consume business content and conversation. To join the conversation and stay ahead of the news, follow Transport Topics on all social outlets or by visiting ttn.ws/stay informed.
That had to have been something to see that you were the only African American in that particular presence, and it sounded like that it motivated you to perform better.
It did. It did, exactly.
I'm pretty sure you share that story with other African American drivers who are coming up who want to achieve the status of you. So, I mean, do you do that? Number one, and number two, what are the differences in the challenges that you see from the 25 years ago when you were just starting out to what's happening now?
Well, I do that, especially being part of America's Road Team. That's what we get the opportunity to go out and do. We get the opportunity to go out and talk to younger drivers who are trying to come into the industry. Because, when you're outside of the industry and you don't, all you hear are the stories of the first thing comes to their mind when we talk to a lot of the younger people. First thing comes to their mind, I'm going to be gone away from home for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. And we had to, let them know. So, no, that's not usually how it happens. I said, over the road, you may be out a week, you may be out 2 weeks, but majority of the time your companies, if you need to get home, they're trying to get you back home, or they're going to get you back home. I said, then in my case, I'm a local driver. I'm home every night. So every job is kind of based on what's best for you. If you want to be a road driver and you like to be out and stay out for a while or stay out a week or two, that's fine. I mean, that's a position for you. If you want to get home every night, same thing. There's a position for you to be able to do that. From and going back to your second question, when I first started I started in '86 being a commercial driver. It was, like I said, it was harder getting on at the time still. It was hard as far as getting a job. And the environment was a little different because, I'm in Montgomery, Alabama. So there was some racial tensions that were still out there, stronger than they are now. And so we dealt with a lot of that, and I think I've said this story on the panel. I was happy, as being the driver I was, and where doing what I was doing. It's something I really enjoyed doing, and I still enjoy doing it to this day. But I can still remember the story I was telling. I had to drive about 3 or 4 years. And I was on the north side of Montgomery, Alabama, and this driver, rides by and he's waving his hand at me, and he comes out with this racial thing he said, and I just remember it because it kind of took me back a little bit when I thought of, it's never left me. I can still picture that guy riding by, and I'm like, I'm a driver who enjoys doing what he's doing, and I got somebody who's going to wave at me and say something like that, But, and then, even when you deliver to certain places, you could, I don't know, you get a feeling from certain people, just the way they react to you. But now, it's been 20, 30 years later, we still have some of that. I'm not going to say it's completely gone, but it's nowhere near like it used to be. Everybody appreciates, what you do. I see much more as far as African American drivers in the industry. I mean, on a daily basis. I mean, you can see the numbers have completely changed.
I remember you saying that on the panel, and I also remember you and the others on the panel as well saying a lot of progress has been made, but there's still work to do. Yeah, my next question, I guess I would like to take the 10,000-foot view of this. What could fleets do? You being a professional that has reached the top of your trade, what would you tell fleets, the things that they can do to include more African American drivers into their fold?
I've thought about it. I talked about that before, and I think it starts with recruitment. It starts before that driver ever gets there. If you're looking for African American drivers, it starts before they ever hit the door. I used to see so much advertisement for drivers, back in the day and throughout the years, and you will always see the perfect looking Caucasian male standing there with a hat on. That was the picture, and that's what you would see. And you think about it, people always saw young African Americans always see the Smokey and the Bandit type of deal, the movie. They saw the movie, and in that movie, the majority of people you would see were Caucasian male drivers. Same thing in some of these other trucking movies. That's what you would see. And I would always tell them that, when it comes to advertisement and the things you see on television, you need to advertise and show a diverse amount of people in there. You got to show African Americans, you got to show Asians, you got to show women and Caucasians. You got to have the variety standing there. Because if you tell me something but I don't see it, I'm not going to believe it. If you tell me we're going to diversify But when you promote it, I see not one different person up there. Then the first thing comes to my mind, your company is not for me. And then word of mouth goes a long way. And if I see your driver, and all I see the majority of the time, all I see is, someone who doesn't look like me. I never see anyone that looks like me. So, that's always been my thing for me, is to have someone on that looks like everybody. You got to advertise, that point.
We've been speaking with Alfonso Lewis Sr., professional truck driver at YRC Freight and the captain of ATA's America's Road Team. Alfonso, thank you very much for being a guest on RoadSigns.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original questions. What are fleets doing to bring in more inclusion within their ranks? What are the issues concerning a person of color in leadership? And how does a diverse workforce help the trucking industry? As you heard from our guests, trucking companies are becoming more proactive in their diversity efforts. As we focus on that, we understand that when we talk about diversity, we encompass all genders, races, sexual orientations, as well as all faiths. For an industry like trucking, there are many from diverse backgrounds that work day in and day out. It is important to recognize and celebrate our origins and differences to make a better industry. In addition, people of color have had a long history of past struggles. However, as diversity grows, having someone of color in leadership will provide a fresh perspective and build more inroads for other diverse backgrounds to explore a career in trucking. If you enjoyed this episode of RoadSigns, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the RoadSigns team, or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Fries. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with our special Thanksgiving episode. Until then, I'm Michael Fries. Thank you for listening.